Lifting up our hearts to heaven, let us imitate the hierarchy of the ages. Let us fall down with fear before the righteous Judge, singing a triumph.
Father, and Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory be forever.
So, as I know many of you are already aware, based on the protocol sent out from His Eminence Metropolitan Gregory, this past Friday marked the beginning of the Hagia Sophia in Constantinople, returning to being used for service as a mosque. Up until this point, for a good number of years, it was kept as a museum. It wasn't used by either us or the current Turkish government. However, the current president has decided to override that and return it to a worship place for Islam. Now, what I want to talk about today is the importance of this. Not anything against anybody else, not slandering anybody. This is not the point of our religion. We don't just run around bandying or right and kicking people's doors down. But it is something that is lamentable and something that we should learn. And there's a reason. So, to begin, where I want to start is with the fall of Constantinople in 1450. And this will be a short history lesson. So, up until this point, Constantinople was the head of all of Orthodox, or all of Christendom. And then, of course, in 1054, we split with Rome, or rather, Rome split with us. And so we were sort of on our own. And we actually asked for aid from Rome in regards to this, and they tried to barter with us and said, well, if you join back up with us, we'll send you aid. But in 1453, we were facing sort of the end of the last of what we can withstand from sieges that were taking place in the city. This is not the first time Constantinople had been attacked, but it was unfortunately the last. What happened was that we knew that this was going to happen. Mahmud II, the leader of the Ottoman Empire, had slowly been growing closer and closer, building different towns, villages, outposts all around Constantinople. And so finally it reaches its head, and on May 22nd, or 26th, excuse me, 1453, an unexpected fog blanketed the entire city of Constantinople. And many of the people there perceived this as an omen that the fog was there to obscure the departure of the Holy Spirit from the city. When they took this as a sign that the city would fall. And so people began to prepare themselves. In addition to this, in the recordings from the Ottoman Empire at the time, Mahmud II, in consulting with his advisors, with his not only political advisors, but religious advisors, asked if this was the opportune time to take the city. And they, in consulting the stars, saw a light ascend to heaven and said, their God has abandoned them. Now is the time. Now, we commonly recognize this as the fact that if 2 or 3 had been found with faith in that city, it would not have fallen. Which only speaks to the fact that we let ourselves slip. We let ourselves grow comfortable with the fact that God will always protect us, and we took it for granted. And this is the same as the Jewish people in the Old Testament taking for granted that Jerusalem would always be protected by God. And then they had to watch with fear and with horror as the temple was torn down and they were exiled in battle. It was taken away from them. And the same thing happened to us. Then, on Bright Monday, after Pascha, is when the actual encampment began around Constantinople, and finally the assault began on May 29th, resulting in the eventual death of the emperor and then the instatement of the patriarch. But, as we look at this, that the very head of all of Christendom was taken from us, that the most magnificent church that we have was immediately entered by Mahmud II and declared as a mosque at the fall of Constantinople. We have to recognize that there is an importance that's been placed on this, not just now, but always. And what we face today is something that we have to recognize that requires our work to pray for. Because very easily, and I will admit this, any one of us can just say who cares. It is not a big deal. It's very easy to say who cares. It's half the world away. It's not your church. It hasn't been a church for a long time, so technically who cares, right? And it's a sensible and logical argument. Why would we care about it? Previous to this is a museum, and so we're not really losing it. However, this goes beyond just a church. And it goes beyond any sort of one loss. And it's not the fact that it is one of the greatest churches in Christendom. It's the fact that we will lose a piece of our own history. And it's very, very easy for us to not care, to not take some action towards that. And this is why I implore you, and the Metropolitan implore you to pray for this. That saner heads prevail, that the wise are more vocal in speaking out against this, and to be returned, if nothing else, to a museum so that all may continue to see the glory of this beautiful church. But what we face is the recognition that something is being taken from us again. And this is not something that should be strange to you. We just experienced this. How many of you are sitting here today uncomfortable because you have to wear a face mask? Uncomfortable because you can't sit next to the ones you love? Because you have to be a little distant. It has already been taken from you. You already lost your church once. You were told not to show up here. Now, thankfully, we have technology that enables us to at least get some semblance of church continuing in our lives. But it should not be foreign to you that something is being taken from us in Christendom. A church is being taken. And our history is being threatened. Those icons and the mosaics in that church have survived since the original building of it. It's not something that can be lightly ignored. And should it be torn down, we can't easily ask them, oh, can we just cut the wall out and take it? The mosaic will be destroyed. They're not like our icons with their canvas on walls that you can peel them off and save them. We will lose them forever. And so this is something that we have to recognize our action dictates. You need to pray about this. Because one person with one prayer may be answered by God in his own time and in his own way, according to his will. And we may never see the actual result of our prayers. And thus we believe that our prayer wasn't answered. But when all of us come together to pray for something, then things happen. And we have to understand that it will. We have to understand that there's an importance in this. That it's not just us idly praying to a God who's not listening. That all of us together are beseeching a God who is merciful and who cares. And if God cares about this, so should you. And if God cares about you, you should care about his holy house. I'm going to give you this history lesson today so that you understand the gravity of the situation. That we already lost more or less control of that city where we can walk around unpersecuted. And there is persecution that happens. Multiple times grenades have been thrown into the very courtyard of the Phanar, where the patriarch resides. At one point, I believe it was on Pentecost, maybe Theophany. Can't remember, but if you ask me later, I'll make sure. One of our patriarchs was killed and hung from the gates in the Phanar. Hungry. They don't go through those gates anymore. They wall them shut out of respect for the fact that he's hungry. This is not an idle thing. We are persecuted in there, and it is because we lost the city in 1453. And now with more loss, we have to recognize that the persecution still stands. And it's not just there, it's everywhere. A person can be persecuted here as well. And so don't stand for it. Ask God to help in it. Don't just say, well, I guess that's going to be the way that it is, and move on. While we don't advocate violence in Christianity, none of us are called to go out and take up swords or arms or guns or whatever and go to fight for it. We are promised, always, that we will be vindicated. That God, in the end, will make sure that things are the way that they should be according to his will. And so we fight by prayer. We show our power by our mercy. And we show our solidarity in Christianity by our love. Offer your prayers to God for this, that something else might not be taken away from us. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Christ is in our midst.